Now that Nico Harrison has been fired by the Dallas Mavericks, what's next? Who will the Mavericks hire as the next GM of their team to lead them forward into the new era of Dallas Mavericks basketball? That's what we're talking about here on today's show, the replacements of who could replace Nico. And there's a couple of very intriguing names that we are going to discuss here on today's show. Welcome into Mavericks Today by Chat Sports. Jeffrey Cooperstein here with you guys. Hope everyone is enjoying their week so far. And start us off down there in the comment section. Who should be the next GM of the Dallas Mavericks? Do you have a name in mind? If you do, type it down there in the comments before we get on with today's show. I know you guys are going to come with the heat to start off the show today. I want to get this one out of the way. This is just not going to happen. I do not want Dirk Nowitzki in charge of the Dallas Mavericks for multiple reasons. And I know this would be a very popular pick for Mavericks fans. I know some of y'all in the comment section will say have Dirk as GM, and I totally understand why. There are just a couple of reasons why I don't think this would be best for both Dirk and the Mavs going forward. Number one, he has no front office experience. Dirk Nowitzki has never been in a front office before. Obviously, he played 21 years with the Mavericks. He is the most important person in the history of the Dallas Mavericks. There is no debating Dirk's status at the top of the Mavericks pantheon. Like, he was and will be the Dallas Mavericks. Number two, I think it's an incredibly hard job ahead for the guy who's going to replace Nico Harrison. There is going to be a lot of pressure on that person to perform immediately, and this roster certainly has a ton of work that needs to be done. Oh, and by the way, this team is going to be in salary cap hell, and they don't have many picks to use. So it's going to be an extremely difficult job for whoever takes this next general manager job. And I don't think it's fair to either Dirk or the Mavericks fans to have Dirk step into a role that is so demanding and so, I guess, taxing on what it would be for Dirk. I think if Dirk were to come in as an advisor, I think that would be great. Like, that's my take on it. If Dirk were to come in as an advisor and he were to assist the general manager in doing whatever that general manager wanted to do and giving advice, I think that would be great. It just wouldn't be fair to Dirk Nowitzki to have him step in as a GM right now. For someone that has no front office experience, for someone that has basically enjoyed retirement for the most part, Dirk is going to want to ease himself in to a front office role, if that's even what he wants to do. Like, I know he's enjoying life right now on Amazon and as part of their NBA coverage. He really hasn't been involved with the Mavericks, and I do hope that he ends up coming back in some capacity, whatever that may be, because his ousting from the Mavericks at the hands of Nico was just absolutely disgusting beyond belief. But I hope Dirk comes back. Just don't think it should be as the general manager of this team going forward. So, who could be the GM of the Mavericks? Let's get into that right now. Number one, and this one might be the guy that I think should be the general manager of the Mavericks. That is Dennis Lindsey, the senior vice president of basketball operations for the Detroit Pistons. Lindsay was an advisor for the Mavericks in the 23-24 season when the Mavericks ended up making the NBA Finals. And he was one of the guys who helped architect that roster, who helped really bring this team together to be one of the best teams in the Western Conference and be a contending team that was going to be a perennial contender for years to come before we all know what happened on February 1st. I really like Dennis Lindsey, and I think he could do a good job with this team. Oh, and by the way, he is a Texas native. He's from the Galveston area down there in Southeast Texas, so that certainly is something of note as well. And Dennis Lindsey, I'm not the only one who is talking about Mr. Lindsey. Tim MacMahon of ESPN reported that Mark Cuban also thinks Lindsey should come into the fold. Here's the exact report. According to sources, Cuban hopes to hire Dennis Lindsey, the former Utah vice president and GM, who is currently the second highest ranking member of the Pistons front office. Lindsey served as an advisor for the Mavs during the 23-24 season, where he had an input on personnel moves that helped build the finals roster around Doncic. So I certainly think that Dennis Lindsey is a qualified candidate for the job, and he has been around for quite a long time. Assistant general manager for the San Antonio Spurs when they were winning championships there with R.C. Buford, Greg Popovich, and the like. He was the GM for almost 10 years for the Utah Jazz. Obviously was an advisor for the Mavericks when they made the finals and is now the current VP of basketball operations for the Detroit Pistons. Been around the block. experienced, knows what it takes to build a contender. You could certainly do worse than Dennis Lindsey as the head of basketball operations for the Dallas Mavericks, and I don't think that it would be a bad idea whatsoever for him to be in the fold. Number 2 on today's show, Bob Myers. How about him? The ex-general manager of the Golden State Warriors, who is the 4-time NBA champ, the architect of the Warriors dynasty. And I know there will be some who said that, Bob Myers couldn't really do the job couldn't really do the job. Bob Myers didn't have to do the job just because he was given that roster, essentially. Well, no, he drafted Draymond Green. He signed Kevin Durant. He helped keep that roster intact, by the way. So I think Bob Myers did obviously a great job with the Golden State Warriors, being the basketball architect of that dynasty. And right now, Myers is the president of HBSE, which is the company that oversees all of Josh Harris's sports entities. And he is someone that is overseeing not just basketball, but a multitude of other teams as well. He did talk with the Mavericks this summer, but now he is the president of HBSE entities. What is that? Well, they own the Philadelphia 76ers, the New Jersey Devils, the Washington Commanders, and Crystal Palace of the Premier League. So this is the company that Myers is the president of, and he is overseeing all of the operations of all of those teams. He has his hand in a little bit of everything right now, and he has a great gig over there, frankly, with Josh Harris. So I would be pretty surprised if the Mavs were able to pull off a Bob Myers hiring. I think 2 things. It would take a lot of money to pry Bob Myers away from HBSE in his current role, but I do think the Mavericks could do it. Why? Because I think the Mavs could pay Bob Myers whatever he wanted in order to come over. And number 2, the Mavericks CEO, Rick Welts, worked with Bob Myers in Golden State. So you could get that duo back together again and try to just get some synergy within the Mavericks front office on the business side. And hopefully they'll be able to try to bring this franchise back to life, because that is what we're trying to do here with this next general manager role. And MFFLs, please stay tuned to the channel, because we'll have you covered with all of the latest Mavericks news. When they hire a GM, we'll let you know. We'll keep you up to date with the latest injury news, the latest trade rumors surrounding this team as we head into the new era of Mavericks basketball, the post-Nico Harrison era. Man, it feels good to say that. One more time, subscribe to the channel. YouTube.com/MavsTV is where you can find us. Masai Ujiri is another candidate that we have to talk about, the 2019 NBA champion with the Toronto Raptors. I believe he just resigned, or they mutually parted ways this past offseason, so he was there for over 10 years as well. Ujiri is someone that I'm not sure is an option for the Mavericks. I don't know if he fits what the Mavericks really want in a general manager, and that's not to say he's not a good general manager. I just don't know if he's what Patrick Dumont is necessarily looking for in a future GM. So if I had to guess, I don't think Ujiri would be an option for the Mavericks, but you have to keep an eye on him simply because he is one of the best names available, and he is a guy that could bring this franchise back to life. But at the end of the day, don't think he's going to be the next GM of the Mavs. We'll get to the final 2 candidates here in just a moment, but before we do that, today's show is sponsored by PrizePicks. You and I make decisions every single day, but being right on PrizePicks can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement this basketball season on PrizePicks, where it is good to be right. You can play PrizePicks in over 40+ states, including California, Georgia, and of course Texas. And they now offer stacks, meaning you can pick the same player up to 3 times in the same lineup. You want to pick more on Cooper Flagg's points, 3-pointers, and assists? Now you can pick all of them in the same lineup, only on PrizePicks. And I do have a football projection here for you guys for Week 11 action. Give me the more on Drake London rushing, receiving touchdowns. I'm also going to take the more on Ted McMillan rushing, receiving touchdowns. Oh yeah, and the more on Rashid, the need for speed, Shaheed, rushing and receiving touchdowns. You can copy my picks or make picks of your own. Just please make sure you do it with our friends over at PrizePicks. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. One more time, that is code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it is good to be right. David Griffin is number 4 on my Nico replacements list, and the former GM of the Cleveland Cavaliers and the New Orleans Pelicans. It did not go well for Griffin in New Orleans, and that's not necessarily all of his fault. It is, an indictment of where the Pelicans franchise is. And I also think the game has sort of passed him up a little bit. He was dealt a difficult hand in New Orleans, no question about that. But I don't think that this would be the real direction I would go in if I was Patrick Dumont, if I was Mark Cuban, who might be making some decisions, and if I was the top decision maker in Dallas. I don't think David Griffin would be an option here. And then last but not least, I know what you're seeing. This might have a little shock value for you. What about the head coach, the current head coach of the Dallas Mavericks in Jason Kidd? It's not as crazy as you might think. It is crazy, but it also could work. I don't think moving Jason Kidd to general manager is the worst idea in the world. I really don't. But it would have to be executed properly. First of all, I think Jason Kidd's a good head coach. I know I'm in the minority on that as far as Mavericks fans go. I really do believe that Kidd is a good head coach. I'm not calling him elite. I think he's good. And I do think he earned the extension that he got this past offseason. He's dealt with a lot of shit in his tenure as the Dallas Mavericks head coach. And I do think that he is a part of the reason that this locker room is still together and playing for each other. So I think that has to be factored in. So if you go this route, you have to have an elite head coach hire lined up and ready to go if Jason Kidd was to be promoted to general manager. And I don't even know if Jay Kidd would even want this job. I don't know if he would want to be off the floor and in the front office, in the boxes, because he's never done that before either. He's been a head coach at 3 different places, in Brooklyn and in Milwaukee. He's been an assistant coach in Los Angeles with the Lakers. Now he's the head coach here. So I don't know if this would even be a move that Kidd would necessarily want to make, but it's certainly something to keep in mind as the Mavericks commence this search for the next general manager of the Dallas Mavericks. So I think that it's certainly a possibility that we see Jason Kidd head up there, and I know that might be a crazy proposition, but just keep an eye on that one. One more time, here are my top 5 Nico replacements. I'm going Dennis Lindsey, Bob Myers, Masai Ujiri, David Griffin, and Jason Kidd. I don't think this is necessarily in order, but I think my top candidates would be the first 2 in Dennis Lindsey and Bob Myers. I asked you to start the show. I'll ask you one more time. Who should be the GM of the Dallas Mavericks? Should it be Bob Myers? Should it be Dennis Lindsey? Let me know down in the comment section who you guys think should be the next GM after Nico Harrison was fired. That will do it for today's show, guys. Appreciate you for tuning in to Mavericks Today by Chet Sports. I lost my voice today because of all of the Nico Harrison drama that went on, all of the yelling that went on, and I do think that this team is better off going forward, and hopefully they make the right hire at GM, and we can move on into the future. We'll see you guys soon here on the channel with another video, and as always, let's go Mavs.